Oh, it must have been the drug I took. Not always the drug they took. Another question? Oh, yeah.
So me first. You can go first.
You want to go first? No. You?
Okay, I heard about people on DMT, or read about rather, finding the reality that they experience on DMT to be more real than their typical reality. And you said that, people getting, fried on acid is all psychological. So I mean, do you think that the problem's created by people taking the trip reality too seriously and balancing it like, higher than the regular reality? I mean, do you think it's like some kind of dementia?
Well, there was a Chinese philosopher named Chung Tzu, who was like a contemporary of Lao Tzu, and this is a true story. He fell asleep, and when he woke up, he dreamed he was a butterfly, right? So when he woke up, he was pretty startled, and then he said, well, am I a man who dreamed I was a butterfly, or am I a butterfly who's now dreaming I'm a man? So, same with women, right? But it's that we really don't know much about how consciousness really works. I mean, I've studied it very intensely. I'm a psychologist, myself, and I've looked really into it, and the more I look into consciousness, the less I think we really know about it. There's this model called altered states of consciousness. People have reported on all different kinds of psychedelic drugs that their experiences feel more real than ordinary reality. They've been linked to mystical experiences that people have talked about. Like in that book, we're talking about varieties of mystical experience. One of them was, my experience is more real than ordinary reality. When I'm dreaming, I feel less real. But what does all that mean? It's really, all of that stuff is not very well understood, and we really don't know very much about it. It's all, conjecture at this point, but it's an interesting area, I have to agree. But I don't think that there's anything really, we can say for certain about it.
That experience, like where you're supposed to meet Pastorito or something. I don't know if it's supposed to be part of a
that's the people who what we were talking about before is in Lucius, right, where they were guiding people through a whole variety of experiences in order to try to have them have a certain kind of outcome. Well, the people who initiate drug ceremonies or shamans or whatever, they also try to do this. They try to create a setting, a type of ritual that will have people have a certain kind of experience. So people are opened up to, having experiences. They can have all kinds of experiences. People are very suggestible, that there's 20% of all society have hypersuggestibility, where, like, for instance, if they go to any kind of, seminar or group meeting, religion or something, they become like complete, practitioners of it. They have every experience that, if somebody tells them to have a guided meditation and have all these experiences, they have every experience. And if they're hypnotized in the hypnosis study or something, that they can go into very deep trances and have all kinds of experiences happen. So suggestibility is increased with any drug, and people use it as a form of trying to produce, program and metaprogramming the brain, whether it be for good or for bad. The key to the whole thing is whether who's doing the programming. You don't want to have somebody else be the one who's trying to control you. You have to control yourself and program yourself.
Are you familiar with anything like that? Like any acid cults, or just like with
there's been all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, it's been it's very, you have to be very, very careful, because anything that produces hypersuggestibility can also have the other side of the coin. People tell you, oh, I'm going to have this experience, or that experience. You have to make up your own mind in the end, right?
Do you know anything about deprivation tanks or
sensory deprivation?
Yeah, and like why?
My friend John Lilly invented those.
Oh really? Have you ever done it?
Uh-huh.
Do you know why our mind does that? Why it trips out when subjected to that environment at all?
Well, there was a guy named, just to kind of give you a little bit of background, there was a guy who was a friend of mine named John Lilly, who worked for the National Institute of Mental Health. He worked with dolphins. He was one of the guys who was working with communication with dolphins. He went down to the Virgin Islands and was working there with it, and he was given some LSD by the government and told never to take it by himself. And he ended up developing this thing called an isolation tank, because he'd been studying reports about sensory deprivation, where they would put people in rooms by themselves and they wouldn't let them have any sensory input or anything for a long time, and people would start having all of these experiences. So he built this tank where he immersed himself in like warm salt water and kind of float, and then it would be in the dark. And he even took LSD in these things, right? But even without taking LSD in them, people would have, after a while, without any other kinds of sensory input coming in, they would start having unusual experiences, or experiences where their minds would be, the stuff that's going on inside them would become kind of almost like visual and experiential.
They did that on The Simpsons. They did that on The Simpsons. Remember that? Lisa and Homer went and they sat in 2 separate tubs. They were all enclosed. Same kind of thing.
Right. So yeah, so the sensory deprivation was used, by consciousness researchers to look at, altered states, did all kinds of things. I mean, hypnosis. We were talking about hypnosis. All different kinds of ways of producing, what they call altered states. But what altered from what? Is our ordinary reality the reality, or is it just, did we, when we swallow the blue pill or the red pill, do we go here or there? Is that the real reality? It's all. I don't think we really know that much about it all. There's still a lot to be discovered. More questions or no?
Is it like a state of sleep where everything in your mind is ongoing? It's like there's always activity you're just doing.
Oh, you mean dreams?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anybody ever hear about anything called lucid dreams?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, what's a lucid dream?
It's a dream where you're aware that you're dreaming, so that you can somewhat control it and know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some people they found that there are these lucid dreams. My friend Stephen LaBerge, who at Stanford studied lucid dreaming, where he developed a light that would flash at kind of subliminal levels, and he would train people to have lucid dreams. And people would have dreams where they, lucid dream, you have a dream, but you become awake in the dream, where you realize that you're dreaming. So all of a sudden you can do all kinds of things, just like we're talking about on a psychedelic trip, but it's in your dream. And, there's all kinds of possibilities of what happens. So that's another interesting way of studying consciousness, too. Dreams are another altered state of consciousness. We spend a third of our life, sleeping, and 2 or 3 hours of that is dreaming every night. Some people don't remember their dreams, but some people, don't remember parts of their ordinary life or parts of the drug trip. More questions? Oh, good. I think you're done now. Good.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Great.